It must be 8 o'clock because I'm live. My chair works. My chair works. Isn't that a novel? Isn't that something novel? Hello everyone. It's hello Muzzman, Mr. Kareem, Ezza. It's been so long. Hope you're well. Whiskey Steens, Whiskey Man Sam. Hope you can all hear me. Lee Wallace, 45 Finn. I'm still looking for my microphone, so it might sound a bit boomy. I realise the audio works without that mic that I've been using, that lapel mic, but it does sound a bit boomy, and I like the audio to be correct, otherwise it's just painful to watch these. Nick Cusack, Lee Wallace, Whiskey and Drinkies, Calte, Strathizgurv, I hope I'm saying that right, Malt Official, good to see you guys. Hope everyone's well, hope everyone's staying well, everyone's in good health, and you're social distancing at the moment, as we've all been advised to do. For those who are outside of Australia, it's probably pretty predictable. We're all in the same boat. We're all in the same scenario of social distancing. Certain businesses having a bit of downtime, having a bit of closure. All sorts of things going on at the moment. This isn't a news report, so I'm not going to go into it. But I do just hope you're all well. I hope you're all staying safe, avoiding the handshake, and at most fist bump or elbow tag or whatever they're doing now. I had a meeting today, actually, which is a lead into the whiskey I'm going to discuss tonight. But Matt Bass, the Whiskey Tailor joined. Sally, Sable Scotch, Muzzman, thank you everyone for joining in. Yeah, look, I had a meeting earlier this afternoon with my friends over at Brown Forman. That was fantastic. Brown Forman are mostly known for Woodford Reserve and Jack Daniels, but they do have some single malts. A few years ago, about 3 or 4 years ago now, they purchased Billy Walker's Empire of Glendronach, Glen Glasgow, and Ben Riach distilleries, all three, for a hefty sum. But well worth it because they're three fantastic distilleries. And I'm not talking about any of those distilleries tonight, but why I mentioned them is because I had a chat with Seamus from Brown Forman about about Virgin Oak, and we're talking about how, because he loves his Virgin Oak whiskies. So Seamus, if you're watching or you're watching later, I know you love your Virgin Oak, and I want to talk about Virgin Oak whiskies. That was the first thing I wanted to discuss. So I've got here a little sample of one. Sound check. It's got a good sound, It always sounds best when you're in the last few drams of a bottle. There's literally 1.5 drams left in this bottle. I'm going to pour a nice measure of that one. That's about almost all of it. Here we have cask 44.112 Spellbinding Shortbread. That was in the February outturn. The reason why I'm talking about this is because Virgin Oak. It's a Virgin Oak, or in this case, New Oak Hogshead Heavy Char. So this one's well and truly sold out, I'm afraid. This one's all taken up. It was in February outturn, and it had one feature. I think it was on the February outturn preview in Melbourne, which was good fun. But it was also in the Wollongong event last week, which is our last event we've hosted at the Society for a little while now. Before we made that decision to cut all of our events because of COVID-19, etc. I don't talk about it. Look, but what I want to talk about is the effect of Virgin Oak, what it is, and how prevalent it is, etc. Where we're seeing it. So it's a relatively new thing, Virgin Oak in Scotch whiskey. I have to say, it's not that common, and we always put the cask type on the bottle, as you saw the other night. First fill ex-bourbon barrel. That means that the whiskey in that barrel previously was bourbon. So it was a barrel of whiskey, and barrel indicates the size, in this case 200 litres, that had previously been filled with the likes of either Jim Beam, Maker's Mark, Jack Daniels, Woodford Reserve, Wild Turkey. So it's had something like that in it, and then it's been shipped over to Scotland from the United States. And this is the first time that barrel's been used to mature, in this case English whiskey, but Scotch whiskey often. And then sometimes we see, a lot of time we see refill casks. Hashtag Team Refill, big fan of refill whiskies. As I've talked about before, once you get into a refill cask, you get into that realm of lovely estery spirit, not being encumbered by the cask too much, but still having so much distillery character. God, I love a good refill. However, in this case, I'm talking a little bit tonight about Virgin Oak. There's not a huge amount to talk about with Virgin Oak, but I want to talk about what that means. If you see the words New Oak Hogshead or Virgin Oak on the cask type descriptor, that means that it's either had full maturation or finishing, or extra maturation, I should say, or finishing, in a Virgin Oak cask. A lot of the time, Virgin Oak is hogsheads, but you do see some Virgin Oak barrels. It's uncommon. No, it's not uncommon in America, of course, but it's uncommon in Scotland to see Virgin Oak barrels. You do see Virgin Oak hoggies, though. So that's where a cask has been freshly cut, freshly charred, toasted, whatever, and then filled with spirit. So what that does, it imparts a flavour profile that is often quite forward, if you like. It's quite cask dominant because it's imparting all those rich first oak profiles to the spirit. There's no ex-bourbon influence, there's no ex-sherry influence, there's no ex-port, ex-wine, ex-muscat, nothing like that. It's just it's all the tannins and rich oak character that goes in parts. So as a result, you often get quite sort of waxy, candle waxy kind of notes, I find sometimes personally. And you often find like quite bourbony notes as well, predictably, because that's how bourbon is made. So to make American bourbon, American straight bourbon, I'm not going to go into too many descriptors about bourbon right now when I'm talking about that tonight. But to make bourbon, you need to put spirit into virgin oak barrels for it to be classified as American bourbons. However, and then of course it becomes an ex-bourbon cask when it gets shipped over elsewhere. In this case, this is a bourbon cask. Well, sorry, this is a Virgin Oak cask. Sorry, don't get confused there. This is a Virgin Oak cask that has no previous seasoning or use at all. So that's a really interesting way to mature whiskey, because it's obviously you're relying a lot on the wood, and you don't want it to overwhelm it. That's why there's not many full maturation, if any, actually. I'm trying to think of even one. If anyone knows one, let me know. I don't know of any Scotch whiskies, core range or otherwise, which have had full maturation in full maturation in ex-Virgin Oak barrels, or casks, I should say. I don't know of any. I know there's plenty of finishes. I've seen Bunnahabhain do it. I've seen Deanston do it. I've seen Fettercan do it. So there's quite a few now. Glenmorangie have done it, but yeah, I don't know of any. Maybe Glenmorangie one was full maturation. The Elanta or whatever it was. Is Elanta? I can't remember. Anyway, let me talk about this one. Glenallachie. Was there a Glenallachie full maturation in Virgin? I think that was a finished Whiskey Gizmo. In fact, we had a Glenallachie a little while back, which was finished in New Oak as well. This one, now the thing about New Oak as well is imparts quite a distinctive colour to most of the spirit as well. So you can see this one's it's quite a bit darker. It's quite a bit darker than you'd normally see a refill, at least. So it's got a lovely sort of orange, like it almost gets like an orange, a reddish orangey hue to it. And everything we bottle at the Society is natural colour, of course. Let me grab some of these comments. Okay. Whilst I'm talking. No SNWS bottle kill song. I don't know. Refill rant. Yes. You know what? We need a refill rant. Sam, IRBC, good to see you, mate. I guess you might taste distinctive characteristics of a particular kind of oak. Also, is there extra risk of over-oaking? Yes, and yes, Whiskey Steens. Great questions. So you might taste distinctive characteristics of a particular kind of oak. French oak and American oak and Spanish oak all taste very different. Ex-Limousin, ex-oak, they all ex-cognac cask. They all taste very ex-black oak, I should say. They all taste very different. And there's different, and the oak characteristics impart different flavors. Generally speaking, a lot of distillers say that American oak can be quite especially over short periods of time, American oak can be quite balanced, and French oak can be quite volatile. So it depends on what kind of oak you're sourcing and where you're sourcing it from, which forestry it's been sourced from, etc. That's a side of whiskey that we don't really talk much about, but we really should. But it nerds out a bit much, though. I mean, it's always that sort of fine line between too much detail and not enough. But if we're talking about sort of like, in-depth detail, which we do on this channel, and then we do at the Society at our events when we're able to do events. But yes, there is certainly risk of over-oaking, which is why they're all predominantly finishes. If you see New Oak Hogshead, this one it even says on the label that it was previously an ex-bourbon hogshead, then it got moved to a New Oak hogshead for a 2-year finish. See, if it was matured for 15 years in New Oak, it wouldn't be that colour, it would be almost positively black, over-oaked, licking a fence post. That's not what you want in whiskey. Wooden barrel spice. Yeah, you do get it. You get like a lovely barrel spice. You get that bourbony characteristic. Almost like, it's not corn. It's not the corn characteristic from the spirit that you get in American whiskey, but it is that it is a certain sort of prickle and spice that you get out of it. It's quite like kitchen spice drawer. And like licorice as well. And jelly. There's so much going on, it's lovely. The Whiskey Tailor says, damn, you're extremely knowledgeable, man. You know what? I'll take that as a compliment. I really appreciate you saying that. I try to impart all the whiskey knowledge I have to you every single night that I'm on the live stream here. If you've missed any live streams, I'm just going to give a quick plug to our YouTube channel, SMWS Australia. You can check it out. We've got maybe 100 subscribers at the moment. It's not a huge amount, but there's a wealth of knowledge on there for members, for everyone to check out and learn things about whiskey. But they are all filmed vertically like this, like I do for Instagram, because it's the same stream. So I apologize if you watch it on desktop. But you can put it in the background on the background tab and watch and listen to it, or you can watch it on your mobile. YouTube mobile is a lot better now for vertical. Does Virgin Oak? Nick Husick asks, does Virgin Oak give the grassy note in bourbon, or is that the spirit, the grassy note in bourbon? I think it's a mixture of cask and spirit, that grassy note. Depends on what. I wouldn't call all bourbon grassy though. I think that's a bit of an oversimplification. I would say the flavor spectrum of bourbon is quite narrow though. Hear me out on this. I've talked a little bit about this a long time ago. The flavor spectrum on bourbon I find quite narrow, just as I find the flavor spectrum on cognac quite narrow. But it's when I say narrow, I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that the difference between, I'd say, like a 3-year-old bourbon at 40% and a 22-year-old bourbon at 58% or whatever, like as in like this is much smaller than you realize. Whereas I'd say the difference between in the Scotch whiskey flavor spectrum is much wider. In Japanese whiskey spectrum, in English whiskey spectrum, etc. English whiskey spectrum, say that after a few drams. It's a very good question, Nick. I mean, I'd say that the grassy note, that sort of like soft sort of grassy note that you get, like I often get sometimes. Does anyone here get like a peanut oil note in some bourbons? See, I wouldn't call those ones quite grassy. I'd call some of the younger bourbons can be quite grassy. Some of the bottled in bond and stuff can be quite oily and like sort of like peanut oil, like peanut butter oil. And it's fine. It's I think it's a mixture of both. But it also defines what you mean by grassy note, because that's not in all bourbons for me, but a lot of them. Any chance you'll be talking about bourbon soon? Yeah, Joel, we could talk about bourbon actually. We do have some American whiskies coming through at the Society later this year. Don't hold your breath, because we've got there's a few American whiskies coming through, which is super exciting because American whiskey's massive in Australia, and we've got a great membership base that love the bourbons that we've put out. The last bourbon we had was beginning of last year, so about a year ago, which was B5.3. It was a 14-year-old from Distillery B5. That was like peanut oil in a glass. It was lovely. It was all ruby and lovely. Jim Kearney joined. Good to see you, Jim. Sable Scotch says, we talk a lot about X Oloroso XPX. Does bourbon cask profiles change dramatically based on a wild turkey versus make and mark barrel, or is it more rye versus cask strength bourbon? Wow, awesome question, Sable Scotch. Let me delve into that a bit again. So we talk a lot about X wine casks, X sherry casks, X Oloroso, XPX. Does bourbon cask profiles change dramatically based on a wine? Yes, so the bourbon cask profiles do change based on where the cask is supplied from. Certain distilleries are more desirable to source casks from. The big ones are, of course, Beam, Wild Turkey, Jack Daniels, Maker's Mark. So they're the sort of the big four that supply ex-bourbon barrels to the industry. There are, of course, smaller other ones. They're harder to come by. They're probably dearer. The demand is stretched. They're used elsewhere. Things like that are much, much, much smaller distilleries. But you've got to understand, like, if you take out Beam, Turkey, Jack Daniels and Makers from the industry, that's probably, I don't know the stat, but that's probably like 95% of all actual production. Well, all branding, I should say, all production. If I leave out production, I'm going to leave out MGP in that discussion as well. We won't talk MGP today. We'll talk about that another day. But in terms of bourbon, yes, some people do desire things like Buffalo Trace barrels. They're quite popular. That's the fifth one probably. There you go, sorry. So Buffalo Trace, Makers, Beam, Turkey, and Jack Daniels. So Jack Daniels casks are quite coveted, quite hard to come by as well, from what I've heard in the industry. A lot of them are used for sort of beer barrels and stuff as well after whiskey maturation in the United States. You see a lot of, you see a fair bit of, not a lot, you see a bit of Buffalo Trace barrels and a bit of Maker's Mark barrels in Australia. The Buffalo Trace barrels are always quite desirable. They've got a certain size and fit to them. Also great for shipping. But yeah, you see a lot of Beam barrels, of course, as well. But so I guess because all those bourbons are different, they're going to impart a different flavor profile, albeit narrow, a different flavor profile difference to each of those casks. and the desirability of such. Also, the age of that cask is going to play a huge part. If you're talking 10-year-old bourbons, which are uncommon, and they might surprise you. I mean, 10-year-old Scotch whiskies are fairly common. Glenmorangie 10 and Dalmore 10 or whatever. It's like core range 10-year-old whiskies are still quite common. Whereas core range and Benriach 10, whatever, core range 10-year-old bourbon's not really a thing. You see Russell's 10, you see a few others. But most bourbon, you've got to understand, most bourbon is between 3 and 5 years old, 3 or 5 years old in the United States. But each of those barrels have a different profile, and each of them certain distillers will seek out different ones in Scotland, and even in Australia as well, of desirability on those. Often they don't care though, it's just a matter of getting supply. And they often have contracts with these distilleries to supply a certain number to their distillery each year so that they can continue making it. But those contracts are often a mixture of the US distillery and the cooperage. I might take a breath here. Okay, Jay Davis, good to see you. Benriach 2006 was full VO maturation. Oh, wow, that's a shame. Yeah, I mean, I'm always really skeptical of that stuff, and I hope it was a lovely whiskey, Sam, but I find full Virgin Oak maturation to be almost too much. So, also, are you sure it was? There's almost... Okay, no, I'll take your word for it. I had a very interesting discussion today about this stuff. I just think it was probably, if it wasn't finished, if it was full maturation, I'd be interested to hear your notes on that, Sam. Honestly, send them through, send me a message. I always get some form of banana in Virgin Oak maturation whiskey. Yeah, it's funny you say that. That can happen. Yeah, there's often banana notes in ex-bourbon barrels. I find sometimes, especially first fills. But banana notes in Virgin Oak, that's a unique tasting. I like that. Glenmoe have done experiments in full maturation Virgin Oak, same as Glenmurray. Dr. Bill Lomson's experiments. My favourite era of Glenmorangie, when Glenmurray was still part of the Glenmorangie stable, and the experimentation, the sandpit experimentation that happened and is still happening at Glenmurray is always fantastic. If you ever get a tour, if you're ever in Scotland, I know flights are a bit scarce at the moment, but if next time you're in Scotland, if you get a chance to tour Glenmurray Distillery and just have a look at some of the casks that are maturing whiskey there, it's absurd. I mean, there's all sorts of things in there which most distilleries don't even take the time to look at. Cider brandy casks and Moselle oak casks and ex-German Strauitzmanina. I can't even say Strauitzmanina. Gewürztraminer. Extra like Gewürztraminer casks, things like that just should not exist, and there'll be like 2 of them and that's it, and there's just experimentation for them, and sometimes they become the visitor center cask as a sort of nice curios, a hand fill that you can fill at the distillery, and other times they get sold to places like the SMWS, which is a lot of fun because we've had a lot of wacky wine casks and weird French oak this and that, and Chenin Blanc casks through Distillery 35. Some of my favourite whiskies of that era were some things of the 13-year-old Chenin Blancs and things. They were just ridiculously good fun. And I'm very skeptical of high cask influence on spirit, but those were just good fun. Look, and that's what whiskey's about. Whiskey Sec joined, Hillwood good to see you guys. I tried chocolate bourbons at Whiskey Now last night, loved it. Oh, chocolate bourbons. That's the 72 dot something, I think. The Juicy Oak and Vanilla. It's in the current outturn, which I conveniently have left off my desk. So that's helpful. But yeah, that's the chocolate bourbons was 72 dot something. Lovely whiskey. I'm a huge fan of Juicy Oak and Vanilla though. That flavor profile for me is one of the rippers, along with Sweet Fruity and Mellow. They're just those lovely like middle point of approachable and fascinating complexity and spirit. But I also love Young and Sprightly, and as I posted to our Facebook group earlier, like an hour ago, whiskey over 60% ABV. So if you find some high proof ones kicking around, they are they can double as hand sanitizer. Why not? Most Virgin Oak, Muzzman says, is American/white oak. Yeah, tight, straight grain, not too overpowering, and cheaper than European oak. You bang on the head, Murray, bang on the head. Okay, Whiteley, good to see you. Baking spice or kitchen spice drawer? Baking spice. No, I'm going to go with baking spice. Well put, Cal. Click like and subscribe. Please click like and subscribe. I'm sorry, I'm just getting through all these comments. Heaven Hill. Don't forget Heaven Hill, that's great. Yeah, you don't see too many Heaven Hill casks coming through. Well, not locally, and I'm sure there's still a lot in the UK, but less so anyway. MGP rant. Imagine just when Makers and Ben would be big, Makers being more wheat. Yeah, I mean, exactly, that's what I mean, Joel, the difference in how, the mash bills, obviously, of what they're using, change the end result of their spirit quite a bit. There was an old SMWS grain whiskey done in a Virgin Oak barrel that was magic. Needed the age. I can't remember which one that was, Muzz. But if you can find it, and even better, if you can bring it around, that's even better. Maker's Mark does not have an age state, so it's very hard to tell. Would you say it's sweet before years? Cal say, very good question. Most American bourbon is between, some is 2, but a lot of it is between 3 and 5 years old. It's quite young. It works at that age. It's meant to be at that age. It imparts a lot of flavour because America is warmer than Scotland. In its Virgin Oak as well. So if you combine the fact that it's sweet, corn-led spirit, 51% or higher for bourbon, of course, into a fresh Virgin Oak charred cask, that you get all those rich flavours, and it doesn't take long to impart into the spirit. But they still use big casks. They still use barrels, which 200-litre barrels, which, that's good. Well, big-ish, big enough. Canvas, I think, yeah. Can we get an ex-George G. Stag barrel to age something in? Yeah. It's funny you say that, Joel. George T. Stag barrels are often then sent to Mexico. A lot of them are, and because it's obviously a shorter commute anyway, but they're desirable to mature a certain, I can't remember the brand, it's a certain tequila brand that matures in, I think it's tequila. Yeah, it's a tequila brand that mature in ex-Buffalo Trace, ex-George T. Stag barrels. It also helps that Buffalo Trace Sazerac own that tequila distillery, so it's an intercompany transfer of casks. They'll probably then sell those casks back, and they might make an ex-tequila whiskey or something if there's any life left in them. No, I'm just kidding. Flight to cheap Scotland, yeah. Maybe 5 to 7 years, exactly, yeah. Lots of weird stuff in that warehouse. Oh, absolutely. Maddie, why don't we see a lot more rum cask finishing? KYD92 asks. KYD92, the answer to that is, first of all, rum casks aren't as plentiful on a supply chain level as ex-bourbon and as ex-wine casks, ex-sherry casks. It's purely, a lot of it would be an economic decision. But the second reason is, first of all, I'm going to go out on a limb and say that most Scotch whiskey, there are a few exceptions here and there. I'm not a huge fan of rum cask whiskies in general, no matter what country it comes from. I find it's very hard to get the balance right. Some are very good, but a lot of them just where the rum, the use of that cask, I find personally, that overpowers the spirit way too early. And you end up with this cask that is quite soaky, quite overly sweet, pungent, and you're like, oh wait, is this a rum now or is this a whiskey? You lose a bit of the character of the actual whiskey, and I find that a bit of a shame. However, I'm going to be the first to announce here a very special project we've been working on, which is a full cask of an ex-rum finish whiskey from the Society. It's a young whiskey, so the rum cask hasn't overpowered the spirit too much, and the rum cask that we're using is an ex-Society rum. So it was an R7, I think, that was then refilled with spirit from this distillery a number of years ago. I won't say how long ago, I won't say the age of the whiskey yet, that is then being bottled, and Australia is getting the full cask. Bam! Think about that. That's exciting. I won't tell you more about that. I'll show you more about that once it's bottled at very least, let alone it's in my hand. From memory, the Advent calendar had a 35 and IPA cask. Amazing creaminess. Yeah, IPA casks are something else. I love that experimentation as well. Whiskey that's been matured then in ex-beer casks. Hillwalk has some really cool barrels. I don't know their barrels, but I want to check it out. Whiskey Man Sam, send me some details. Virgin Oak Flight, yes. Fun fact, I remember hearing that most bourbon barrels are used to make Sriracha. I think it's a lot of Jack Daniel's barrels and a few others. But I'm going to take your word for it. I don't think the output of Sriracha sauce, I don't even know if I'm saying that right, is anywhere near the production value of using it in spirit again. I'm sure it's probably 100 to 1 whiskey to Sriracha sauce output. I don't know. How long does it take you to go through a bottle of Sriracha sauce? Probably much longer than it takes you to go through a bottle of whiskey. So could that be an Australian whiskey then? No, it's not, Joel. That is not an Australian whiskey I'm talking about. But it is a whiskey that has been maturing for 7 years in an ex-Society rum cask. So 7 years? I just said it, 7 years. No, it's got a little longer to go. We're still maturing it. We're going to see how we go with that. And I'm really excited. I just gave that bit away. But it's a collaboration that we're working on, and it's 3 people working in that collaboration, 3 different It's society plus one kind of collaboration, and I'm really excited by that. It's a long-term project that we've been working on. There's a few long-term things still in the barrel, still to be announced, obviously. This year's been thrown into a bit of disarray, of course, with the coronavirus, COVID stuff. So a lot of our events and activations and member experiences may be just a little bit tougher to execute. But what that means for us is that I'm able to do live tastings for you here out of my office and elsewhere where it's safe to do so. When we're here, like working out of the office and working from home, etc., including the live tasting, which the date has moved. I'm very sorry. Mark your calendars. April 20th. I've even done. You can get your home tasting kit. Wait for it. Home tasting kit here, and there's the date. I'm going to hold that up. Put it in your calendar now. That's super exciting. I hope that all looks okay on the screen there. So Monday, the 20th of April, 2020, the live tasting for this the Gathering 20. It's a Gathering 2019 pack. A few of you picked it up last year. So if you haven't tasted it yet, if you didn't get one of these packs to begin with, jump on it now because it's on the website. It's live. Check out the links. It'll be in the next email as well, but it's already on the shop page. I think on page 2 in the shop, and you get all those 5 samples. If you already have one before and all the tasting notes, then you get another one. If you didn't have one before, then now's your chance to grab one anyway. Still got some left. This is going to be a great little tasting kit that we're going to do a live tasting Monday night, the 20th of April, in this office here. Depending on how we go with health and and regulations and who can do what, Andrew will be here as well, which is super exciting. So I'll see how he's going. Hobart Whisky has used Hill Rock Bourbon Cask. That's exciting. There you go. You know what? Hobart Whisky's doing some good stuff. Good distillery, good little distillery down there. Their first and second releases are fantastic. I like whiskies aged in Virgin Oak. The extra dimensions in flavour make it interesting and good fun. It's true, and this is one example that I haven't even had a taste of yet because I've been talking a million miles an hour tonight. Hold on. I had a nose of it before, actually. It's a 44.112. Oh, that's fantastic. Honeycomb and tiny bit of teriyaki sauce. That's fantastic. Honeycomb though, the honeycomb note. That's one you often see in Virgin Oak, I find as well. So first taste of that for the night. I'm going to add a drop of water to that. 59.9, that's made me wince a little bit there. Drop a bit of water to that, see how it reacts. The water has actually opened up just a tiny bit, but I'm going to add a tiny bit more. I'm going to be a little bit liberal with the water tonight. Let me grab some of these comments. Whiskey Man Sam, McHenry has Henrock currently aging away. Man Sam the man, hit me up. We should talk. I need to taste those. Another teaser for April. No, look, there was no teaser for April tonight because I've got the full April outturn arriving in the office as early as, Australia Post says from tomorrow. That means I'll probably see it Monday. But we'll see how we go. This isn't April outturn, this was February outturn. I'm rewinding a couple of months here. There's 1 dram left in this bottle that I got to pour and have a chat to you about tonight. Spellbinding shortbread. You'd think I'd already had a dram of it, I haven't. Ooh, that's strange. The water's actually hasn't helped the nose. The nose is far better without the water, but the palate's far more approachable with it. That's a very strange whiskey. I like that. It's challenging, It's kind of the whiskey that gets you thinking. Gets you going, what's happening here? What's all these flavors? And just identifying the flavors is part of the fun for me. It's discovering those flavors, having a taste of a few things, and working it out from there. I'm also going to announce that we've got some special streams happening, which will be exclusive to our YouTube channel coming up. I'm not trying to migrate off of Instagram. I'm still going to do the nightly Instagram, so we've got some exclusive YouTube streams, which will mean they'll be in the letterbox format rather than the vertical. And I'll have some special guests coming in for that, provided they're not unwell and haven't travelled to overseas in 14 days and aren't elderly. All the usual benchmarks. There's something about Virgin Oak aging takes water well. Yeah, the water did actually open that right up. But I'm going to be honest, I preferred the nose pre-water, but I like the palate post. I don't know, maybe I like both post or pre. It's exciting either way. It's lovely, actually. That's really lovely. That's the kind of whiskey I'd bring to like a Sunday afternoon picnic. I always like to think of we used to publish the drinking tip. We don't do it anymore. But in the tasting notes, there always used to be a drinking tip. For those members who've been around for a couple of years might remember this one. Our turns had a drinking tip in them. And this one, the drinking tip I'd write for a lazy Sunday afternoon picnic. I'd write that for it because it is that kind of whiskey. It's the kind of sort of sweet, like sweet and charry and honeycomb and figs and a nice sort of sweet, fun whiskey to have on a 15-year-old on a Sunday afternoon kind of gram. So I'm afraid that one has sold out, but we've got some lovely whiskies coming up. There's a few on the website right now if you're after anything. The last little announcement I'll make is just to say we've got... where was I going with that? Yes, our warehouse, Australia Post, all of everything else at the Society, all of our content, all of our videos, all of our Facebook group. If you're not on the Facebook group yet, you don't even need to be a member in it. Just there for a good discussion. The Scotch Malt Whisky Society Australia. Look for the group. Please join. You're welcome to join. I'll add you in tonight. Everything's still running as always. It's just our events, I'm afraid. Our experiences for members, which are around the country, have to put the brakes on. We put the brakes on a little bit earlier than other branches around the world, and we thought it was responsible to do so. And so, pardon me, it's affecting not just us, of course. If you're in Melbourne, you missed out on the F1. If you're in the States, you missed out on the NBA, blah, blah, blah. Everything's sort of in slowdown, shutdown, and just, social distancing. So for me, I work mostly from home. That works for me. Just having to cancel a few meetings and a few catch-ups with people. But that's just the way it goes at the moment. But I still encourage you to open a nice bottle. The idea is to open a nice bottle. If you get to share it around with people, even better. If you can't, then just enjoy it yourself. And I'll catch you all tomorrow night. Last few questions here. Whiskey Boy 71, you just made it in. Hello, he says. When's that new 0.1 coming out? Yeah, I can't tell you what it is, and I can't really tell you when it's coming out because it's only just been bottled. It's literally on what we call bottling hall at the moment, so it's empty glass bottles waiting to be filled. So we can't I don't even know when it's going to come out. There you go, that's my answer. Andrew's the best person to ask for that, but it's going to be whenever it can make the next shipment. If it makes the bottling hall in time, and then it gets on to the next shipment after that, and we'll see it here, look, maybe even by Christmas. Look, it's kind of like, we work fairly far ahead with this stuff, so, we sort of know what's going on all the way up until sort of November, December shipments. So, we don't get too excited that early because obviously shipment schedules change, bottling hall delays, etc., etc. That's the way the whiskey industry works. And with everything going on at the moment, we don't know if there's going to be less staff in the bottling hall or, anyway, we don't know. We're going to do our best we can. All the homeless in Melbourne have been dining on oysters and prime beef. What a life. I don't know what that means, but it sounds pretty funny. Yet there's 44 guys running around hugging each other on the MCG at the moment. Yeah, that also sounds like a terrible idea, Joel. So, I don't know. What's happening in Melbourne? Has it become apocalyptic over there or something? Hugging at the MCG and homeless people eating oysters? What's going on here? I haven't heard of it being that crazy in Sydney yet, so fingers crossed. So thank you all for amazing questions tonight and an amazing discussion on Virgin Oak. It was a good discussion to have. I'm pretty sure we've not talked about Virgin Oak before, so it's always good to touch on different cask types, touch on different things. If you've got a suggestion for our next live stream, which will be, we're going to do a special edition live stream tomorrow afternoon. So keep your eyes out for that. It'll be tomorrow afternoon. It'll be at 3 o'clock tomorrow. So I'll put the live stream notification up on our story now. And if you've got a special request, put it in the questions box on the live stream. I'll answer them. We'll do a special afternoon Q&A tomorrow. That's going to be really exciting. Friday afternoon Q&A. Because if, the 8 p.m. session on Friday is always lots of fun. It's always a bit of a hoot, but it can get a bit sort of wild. And people are often going out, or maybe not going out this time. Who knows anymore? We're all learning as we go. 3 p.m. tomorrow. Keep an eye out for the live stream tomorrow afternoon. I'm going to answer your Q&A, Friday Q&A tomorrow. And it's going to be good fun. And we'll share, if the shipment arrives in time, I might even have an outturn preview tomorrow for... Yeah. Oh, I get it now, Blackwood. Sorry. Cancelled catering in F1. Sorry, I got to rewind back to that the remark I made. Damn. Sorry. Okay, I get it now. Okay. So, yeah, tomorrow afternoon, Friday Q&A with the ambassador. Tune in 3 o'clock. I'm going to put a story up on our Instagram, and I'll put a thread up in our group. So ask questions. I love it. We're gonna have a good Friday wrap discussion, and if the shipment lands in time, I'll do a discussion on one of the upcoming whiskies again. I've got one upcoming to talk about, the 137.6, which is an April outturn, but I'll have a discussion with that as we go. Cheers to your good health and fine dramming. I'll see you all tomorrow night. Tomorrow afternoon, 3 o'clock.